Today's special Wasteland Spotlight is a little different than my usual stuff. Our destination is the abandoned prison complex at Eagle Mountain, deep in the California desert. You may have seen some drone flights over this place before, but as far as I know, there haven't been any other YouTubers with the testicular fortitude needed to go inside. That changes today, as we will be completing a deep recon inside what remains of the facility, and you definitely don't want to miss it. The prison itself is also surrounded by one of the most extensive and modern ghost towns in the entire United States, a subject for a future video. And it sits decaying next to one of the largest open iron mines in the country, which is also shuttered. The area abounds with interesting relics of the not-so-distant past, but today we will be focusing on the prison for our exploration. The complex itself is massive, and I wanted to show you everything I could, so this will be a very long video, made even longer by the fact that I discovered a mystery inside that will definitely surprise you. It certainly surprised me. I have been doing these explorations for a very long time, and I have found some pretty crazy stuff out here, but nothing like what I uncovered here today. This is a special edition of the Wasteland Spotlight because it was a scouting mission that ended up turning into something much more significant than any mere exploration. Once I was able to look around inside, what I found I can't yet fully explain. If I had to call it something right now, I would probably say it was a high-tech autonomous drone swarm base. Which really shouldn't be in an abandoned prison in the middle of the wasteland, right? Who knows? It could be the answer to some conspiracy theory that hasn't even been spun yet, but if you think that's just clickbait, you should pay attention closely. And welcome to the Wasteland, my friends. Hey everyone, this is a very ambitious video project for me and a bit dangerous as well given the location. I have been out here before and to other even stranger and more hazardous locations, but I've never done so as a video project before this. Usually such missions are just my own recon scouts of various points of interest in my area of operations. I did make a video about my preparations for this expedition, and I will link that on screen for those who want to check it out. I do recommend giving it a look before watching this one just for context. But the short version is that this run isn't a casual one. The location in question is somewhat off limits, extremely isolated, and also rarely visited by anyone, so there could be a variety of unknown dangers which I have to take into account. So, you will be going in with me, on foot, and I haven't been here in quite some time. This video might be a bit less stable than my usual work since I am not so much paying attention to the camera as I am watching my surroundings and keeping a wary eye on my back trail. I hope you get something good out of this, even if that is just a little entertainment, and I promise that what I uncover here will end up having been a surprise for both of us. Let's get down to the ground and start this show. Alright, this is the last little hill between me and the location, so I popped up to give you a bit of a perimeter view. I've already done my drone overflights and I haven't seen any sign of movement or activity yet, so I'm pretty certain that no one else is here. Still, we'll only be up here for a second to take a look and then get back on mission and behind cover. Time to get off this hill and back down into concealment. This is part of the mostly dry stream bed or flood channel that I've been following for most of my trip into the area. In the distance, we can see the outskirts of the town, and we have marked the water tank up on the hill as our navigational point of reference. We will stick down into this little creek bed as long as we can. Remember, the purpose of this is to stay below the line of sight to the target so that any watchers will have a hard time spotting you. We can still see our water tank in the hills for our own positional reference. These power lines here mark the beginnings of the outskirts of the old town, but many of those outer buildings have collapsed over the years. We won't be taking the easy path there because that's always exposed. Take a quick look here. This flat area is the actual road that once serviced the mines in the mountains behind the town. Since their closure a long time ago, the roads were purposefully blocked by large rocks and old power lines to prevent people from just driving in. We can see the road and the barriers on the satellite imagery as well. That road would be convenient, but very elevated and exposed if there was an opposing force here to worry about. Here's a closer look at the barricade, which is as close as we'll be getting to it. Besides, the mines are not why we're here today. We're not going to go there. We have come for the town and the prison. We are well inside the outer perimeter now, and I can see my covering rainfall approaching, so I want to get a move on. The plan is to use this rainstorm to both cover the sounds of my walking over these rocky areas and also to convince any less than disciplined watchers to head inside to stay dry. Inside is where I prefer my opposing sentries to put themselves. Got some drops coming in now. You can see it on the surface of the water here. Let's move. Made a short jog, and there is our water tank reference as well as the main body of our rainstorm coming. Up ahead, we can see the yellow poles and cables that mark an old rear parking area, our first transition point from the outskirts to the true inside of the location. We have completely bypassed the front entry to this place and are instead coming in the very best way, through the back door. Okay, let's take a look. Right away, this is where I start to feel a bit uneasy. There is a light up on a pole that has power, and it looks to be either at the front of the main prison entrance or somewhere close to it. Not good, but certainly interesting and worthy of a closer look. Now, we just have to reach that back door I was talking about. We do have to cross a few open areas here, including this road, which is actually the separation between the prison on the left and the town on the right. Our sketchy light is indeed on the prison side, but I don't see any signs of activity. The next road here is the one that goes up to the back fence of the prison itself, as well as a small fenced-in outbuilding. Still seeing no signs of activity. Our new reference point will be that light. Right up here, this road is the tail end of that barricaded road that I showed you as we came in. This continues on behind the prison and heads into the mountains for the old mining complex. Back on our road to the rear of the prison, we stop again for a little look-see. Pay attention to birds like these crows because they can alert you to the presence of other people in the area. Also keep in mind that when you startle them, as I have just done, other people may look as well, so this is a good time to be still for a bit. The human eye is attracted mostly to movement, so don't give it anything to lock onto. Okay, moving on, this little building here used to be a workshop, but there really isn't anything of note inside, and I'm sure you guys are anxious to get to the real meat and potatoes of this video, so I won't bore you with my checking of it. This is why you clicked on the video. We have arrived at the back fence of the prison compound, so now the real fun begins. These old camera poles are all around inside and outside. In their current state, they remind me a lot of the old Fallout games, as does this entire place, really. One last look at our back trail before we head in. The entire perimeter fence has various cuts made by other visitors in the past, and I pretty much know where they all are. We'll be using one just up ahead by that light pole. But let's take a quick break for some history on this place, especially the part leading up to why it was abandoned. The prison was built out of an old converted shopping center in 1988, which used to service the surrounding mining town. It was operated by a Utah-based privately owned prison operator under contract with the California Department of Corrections. It was meant to house 436 low-risk and supposedly nonviolent inmates. That assumption of nonviolence didn't last long, however, and in October 2003, a major riot kicked off while the inmates were watching the World Series in a rec room. What follows here is actual security camera footage of that riot. At minimum, over 150 of the prisoners were involved, fighting predominantly along racial lines. Inmates attacked each other with kitchen knives, meat cleavers, broom handles, dustpans, rocks, pipes, crutches, and even fire extinguishers. 2 inmates were stabbed to death, 7 others were critically injured, and dozens more were hurt. 8 inmates were ultimately charged with and convicted of first-degree murder. As the riots spread, the unarmed and overwhelmed guard staff retreated from the facility, locking themselves behind the secure doors of the various admin areas of the prison. Unable to do anything to stop the inmates from completely taking over the facility, eventually they had to call in real guards from the California Department of Corrections, who made the long trip out to put down the uprising. The brutality of this mass brawl, the murders of the 2 inmates, and the fact that it was allowed to happen at all shocked the state of California, and Eagle Mountain Prison was promptly shut down and has remained abandoned since 2003. Several YouTubers and others over the years have shown some good drone footage of flyovers, but no one's shown you the inside, until now. So, without further ado, let's get to it. The first little structure that we come across is a small maintenance building, probably for landscape work and such, or what they used to call yard labor. This is an out-of-bounds area inside the outer fence, but between that and the inner fences. The dorms and buildings here would have been for the use of lower security, more well-behaved inmates and workers. We can take a quick peek into our little yard labor crew office before moving on. Next up, this would be one of several communal bathroom shower buildings for the various dorms here at this corner of the prison. No dropping the soap in here unless you're into that sort of thing. Very few interior cameras at a facility like this, and none at all inside the bathroom areas. Old-style group urinals here, just so everyone knows what everyone else is working with, I suppose. Perhaps that helps in scheduling shower times? I'm not sure. This is the main inside road that circles most of the compound and separates the inner dorms and rec areas from the outer. We will go take a look at dorm 11 here. As I mentioned, these dorms would be for workers and other inmates who had demonstrated their good behavior over time. Because of that, they get less supervision to deal with and a few other perks, such as this dorm. If you notice how spread out the bunk beds are and how they have built little privacy wall sections using the extra shelves and lockers, this is something that inmates would do to customize their space, and for those who are model prisoners, such things would be tolerated by the guard staff. When we look at some of the inner dorms, you will see the difference. Leaving our outer dorm area, we'll head inside the inner fence line. Here we have one of those more standard dorms, and as you can see, the conditions were a bit more cramped and confining. Looks like someone left their 2 cents here. As somebody who responds to all my comments, I'm a big fan of getting in my own 2 cents, so I may have gotten along well with this fella. Speaking of which, you guys should leave your 2 cents down in the comments. Let me know what you think of this so far. A quick bit of prison trivia. You see that white residue on the inside of this locker? That is toothpaste, and that's traditionally how inmates would glue up pictures of either their family or stuff they cut out of magazines. Heading out here, we'll look at one of the bathroom buildings that served this group of inner dorms. The general lack of graffiti and broken toilets or holes in the wall speaks volumes of how few people have actually come inside to explore this prison. Usually, the less graffiti, the more isolated the place. There is some around here, but not all that much compared to other locations. Heading out here, we can get a look over at the main rec yard. We will take a look at that in a moment, but first we want to peek into this other dorm area here. Now, let me mention that up until this point, I haven't seen anything to seriously concern me yet, but that's about to change. I had looked at the drone footage as I was doing my flyover recon before entering, but again, that footage is mostly for analysis later, and on my little screen, I didn't spot anything too out of the ordinary. My spidey senses were tingling a bit now due to this one light system that seems to have power, but otherwise everything seemed in order. That wouldn't last much longer. At this point, I decided to stay behind the cover of these outer buildings while I maneuvered to get a better look at the rec yard and the central concrete slab where the chow hall building once stood. Here we can see the open rec yard a bit better, with nothing amiss. But cutting the pie around this Dorm 6 wall, that's when my heart skipped a beat and I got that cold feeling when you suddenly realize that you may be sharing the area with an unknown hostile force. The first thing that caught my eye was a flash of light and motion that didn't belong here. Zooming in, we can see this large white object, which appeared to be new and made of metal. I couldn't quite tell what it was yet. And to the side was some sort of small electrical box with a fan set up to blow on it. And that's where the flashes of light came from. As I got a closer look at the area, that's when I noticed a very sophisticated sensor tower of some sort that had been erected on the roof of one of the buildings. All of this looked new, complex, and expensive, and very out of place in an abandoned prison many, many hard miles away from anywhere. And I know for a fact that none of this stuff was here 8 months ago. At this point, there was a reevaluation of the mission to be done, and I was starting to feel a bit like I had crossed over into something that was definitely none of my business. but I was about to make it my business. Off camera, I did spend some time observing for any surveillance measures that may have been in place, such as cameras, passive infrared sensors, or ultrasound devices, any of that stuff. I didn't really see anything, but that didn't mean they weren't there, so I decided to go back out around the fence and come at the rec yard from the rear to put that new antenna building between myself and whatever those electrical boxes were out on the slab. This area here is the main open recreation yard, where all the iron pumping would have taken place daily. No weights remain today, though. Looks like it would be a good spot to take a closer look at this antenna tower, though, so that's what I do. Zooming in, we can see multiple types of communication devices, although not the normal sort that I'm familiar with. Possibly some sort of SIGINT or signals intelligence apparatus, at least that's what I thought at the time. Whatever it was entirely too new and too sophisticated to be out here. I followed the cable down the side of the building to a newly installed junction box of some sort and eventually to a standard orange outdoor use extension cord that then ran along the ground haphazardly through the fence back by the dorms. I was going to have to chase that down later. For now, I would head out along my sweep of the perimeter buildings and go towards the admin section of the prison, stopping to get another side angle look at the slab along the way. As I went, I could see a second one of those larger white containers, and now I could see that it seemed to have some sort of clamshell doors to open along the top. I headed for the cover of the old handball courts for a better look. From here, we can zoom in for a better description of one of the large containers and also the small electrical box and fan. You can clearly see the clamshell doors for the large containers now, and that started me thinking about the reports of large drones out here, which is what originally sent me on this scouting mission. Zooming in closer on the small box confirms the drone activity because that device I am certainly familiar with. It is the DJI Dock 2 drone launching system for the storage and charging of autonomous drone systems. This is a very significant piece of hardware and not cheap either. Let's take a quick look at the official information about it so you can get a better idea of how strange and suspicious it is to find this out here. At about $5,000 a pop, these docks are made to be the housings, launching, and ground control stations for a specific series of very pricey and capable DJI Enterprise drones, specifically the Matrix series, and those come in at just under $14,000 each. All said, those two little boxes out there represented close to $50,000 worth of drone surveillance gear. And the crazy thing is that these would end up being the cheap stuff that we would find here. Still, we are talking about AI-enabled, globally controllable, remote piloted vehicles with zoom functions, low light, and thermal optics capabilities. I thought my drone was pretty cool, but whoever's operating this, they wouldn't even want mine. What are they going to do with that? Feed it to their drones? These monsters make my own DJI Mini 4 Pro look like something that was pooped out by a real drone. Scary to think that these things are out here capable of patrolling the area for 10 kilometers in every direction. And for what reason exactly? Consider my curiosity piked and my antenna fully erect at this point. Oh look, I found the last remaining iron from the weight pile. Given the presence of the DJI Enterprise systems, that told me quite a bit about what these much larger units probably were and what was under those clamshell hangar doors. But I was unfamiliar with the exact models at the time. However, now that I'm at home doing the editing and voiceover, you don't have to be kept in as much suspense as I was. Okay, Let's talk about the big boys over there now. Our clamshell device was in fact a drone in a box system produced in Finland by Nokia DroneWorks. I'm going to be linking all the sources for these things down in the description of this video for those who want to research further, but to keep it short, these are some truly scary autonomous drone systems. Capable of being flown from anywhere in the world via 5G or 4G LTE cellular networks, these drones are serious business. Built to operate in the harshest of environmental conditions and with advanced sensory capabilities, including frequency and signals intelligence gathering, thermal imaging, automatic mapping, LiDAR, and more. These are not flown for entertainment. Hell, these are even beyond the drones used by Hollywood in filming movies and such. These things are real no-shitter industrial-grade drones up there with the stuff normally employed by nation-states and major international corporations. And now it was out here, in an abandoned prison in the middle of the desert with nothing around to be worthy of such hardware. Very shady. What I was looking at here was at least 6 figures worth of incredibly advanced surveillance and reconnaissance gear being used by who and for what? I didn't know. All I did know was that it was my mission to find out, so I gathered up my testicles and prepared to push on deeper into the prison complex. The building over there is what's left of the prison admin complex. Part of it is caved in, and part of it has always been fully locked down, and so I haven't gone into it. I doubt that has changed, but we will take a look and see. Get some wider shots here. This is also the main gate and sally port for the prison, exiting out into the ghost town that surrounds this place. Most of the administration building there was locked up and sealed when the prison was shut down, and they locked it up really tight. Obviously, that means I'll be keeping myself out of there, but I will check the doors again just in case. The old and still dead camera poles are pretty creepy to look at, and I can't help but keep looking back at the drone housings just to make sure one of them doesn't pop open on me like an egg from the Aliens movie franchise. Just as a quick note, the concrete slab these drone systems are sitting on, that used to be the foundation to the main chow hall and kitchen building. That was torn down long ago, although I'm not sure why. Now it seems to just exist as a landing field safe from prying eyes. Well, less determined prying eyes, anyway. All right, we are now outside the fence again just to poke our head into this side room off the main admin building. This is something I always check on when I come out here because if the contents haven't been disturbed, then that's a pretty good sign that the looters haven't been out here. All these copper wire coils you see in here mean that the crackheads haven't penetrated this far into the desert yet. Door's still locked up tight, something I'm not going to change. Big hawk there hanging out in the sally port. I do want to be extra careful here because not only am I starting to get close to that light, but with this being the only secure area left for the prison, if I was the leader of some international drone spy ring with $250,000 to drop on tech, this is where I would probably set up my Dr. Evil base. Careful I may be, but I'm still going to check the doors. It's all part of the job. It is very eerie out here. So quiet and yet with such an ominous and oppressive feeling. It isn't just that it's a prison, but it's also that it is the site of some unknown and possibly nefarious activity as well. Out here in the desert southwest, there are still massive tracts of land where Wild West rules still apply for the most part, and there is more than one body of a curious cat buried out here. Still secure. I will spare you my checks of the other doors as nothing interesting pops up and we need to get to the good stuff. Turning to look over to the side, these buildings here were part of the education and school buildings for the inmates at one time. Some have been locked and some not, and we'll get to them soon. Our mystery light seems to be on a pole at the front of those education buildings. We will go back around the long way for cover and to not leave anything unchecked on our back trail. Coming around, part of the inner fence is down, which makes a convenient entry point for the education area that we're about to cut through on our way closer to the central slab. The rain is coming down now pretty good, which you can see and hear. And that's good auditory cover for us, so I'm going to use it for an approach past the landing slab to the front buildings. Quick check on these front education buildings. These were always locked before, and it seems they still are. I am, of course, a bit more interested in sneaking up on the slab. Those front buildings ahead are the old medical clinic and the parole board office. That's where we're going to head next. Nice unobstructed view of our DJI drone docking stations. Each one of them just 20 grand worth of stuff left out in the rain. No biggie, not suspicious at all. No visible countermeasures, so we will make a dash over to the clinic. It would appear that this area hasn't seen any use at all. Front reception area. Biohazard bags, that's nice. Everything's as I remember it. Here is one spot I remember well, the dental office. It looks identical to the last time I saw it about 8 months ago. Certification from December of 1995. You guys knew I had to press that. Moving on, we can explore some of the other medical exam rooms and offices. Infectious waste. Yeah, I'm going to leave that shut. It does get a little interesting again here as I look out past the front fence of the prison. That white utility truck and trailer wasn't here before, ever. Take one more look at our drone stations out there. As for the truck, I'm guessing that it was used to do some of the installation of whatever the hell they installed out here. as well as jacking into the old power lines that run through the prison and the ghost town out to the mine. I'm assuming that's how they're getting power. The area out there isn't part of the prison. That is part of the old town that surrounded it, which will be the subject of a second part to this video down the road. When we get across here to the old parole office, this is where it gets exciting again. The first thing I noticed in here is that I can hear an electric humming sound coming from down the hallway, but I stopped to check this desk first. The intel weenie in me can't ever pass up a piece of paper. This here is the parole board report for one of the inmates that used to be here. Looks like some pellets from some old non-lethal rounds. This guy kind of looks like the star of those Kingsman movies. What's his name? Taron Egerton? Pretty damn close. Anyway, interesting but not pertinent, so let's move on. Somewhere down here is where the humming is coming from. You may be able to hear it on the video now if you turn the volume up. It's coming from the room next door. All these boxes were very interesting and pretty new as well. Looks like an outdoor wireless router and access point. And this box is for one of the DJI Dock 2 drone systems outside. And we still have a bill of lading here. That and the address and shipping information on these labels will be good intel to have when I start researching what is going on out here. This window was not covered before, and this ventilation duct wasn't here. I can tell this is where my humming is coming from, and there is obviously power drawing in air for a lot of cooling. But cooling what? Nothing special across the hall, but when we look at the door for the room next door where the cooling is taking place, we have a nice shiny new lock on the door as well as some wooden frame reinforcement. I'm obviously not going in there, that exceeds the current sneak and peek objectives of my mission, but I do wonder what needs so much cooling, and the only thing that really comes to mind would be a server. The plot thickens. Nothing out of the ordinary in the next room. These are some old visitor information sheets from the prison days. Drones still closed up tight, which is how I hope they remain while I'm here. Curiosity is hard to overcome, and I could make short work of this combination lock, but nope. We'll go out the far side, perhaps. I could see a bit more of that truck and some of the other buildings on that side of the prison, but I can't really get a handle on the area near the truck, and I don't want to cross all this open area until I know what might be able to see me. So, we will go back the way we came to the rest of the education buildings. The rain has let up and our drone boxes are still sleeping, so off we go. Definitely need to get up close and personal on that antenna array as well after we finish with the education area. Looks like an old classroom or testing area, and this used to be locked. There are a couple of extremely interesting items here. The first is what appears to be a notebook made from stapled together pieces of paper, but that isn't what's interesting. The interesting part is that it is handwritten in Arabic, which, unless you're a native speaker and reader, that just isn't a casual thing. A disturbing find that doesn't really make any sense. Later, simple translations using Google Lens only gave me broken text that seemed to be religious writings, although there were 2 mentions of OPEC. Further analysis needed. Then there was this little piece of paper that I almost missed, and it's so weird to find here that I don't really know what to make of it. On the surface, it appears to be some kind of BOLO, like be on the lookout type of slip, like law enforcement we use to briefly describe a person of interest to look for. But the format is strange, simplistic, and unfamiliar. As of yet, I haven't turned up any information about this person. If any of my viewers out there want to give it a shot, go for it. I would love to hear what you find. The rest of this education building appeared to be intact and mostly undisturbed until I noticed another fresh lock on an old desk drawer. Very much out of place, and I'm really wondering what this place may have been used for recently. The dust being disturbed lets me know that people have been in here doing something, but of course I also know that because the door isn't locked anymore. A kind of strange U.S. map here, and I don't know what this blue marker line is supposed to signify. Given the marks and the dust on this floor and furniture, and the fact that this building was locked the last time I came here, I know that this has been used for something recently. Some kind of clandestine meeting, perhaps? I'm starting to get a little spooked out here. The more weird shit I find, the less I understand about what's going on here or why. And not knowing things makes me nervous. Thought I heard something. Just a quick prepper tip regarding your smartphone after SHTF. Most people think they're useless, but the truth is that they will be one of the most valuable tools you can have in the years immediately following the collapse of civilization. A topic for its own video for sure, but just here I'm using it extensively to zoom in on distant areas like binoculars and also doing a lot of map and satellite imagery referencing. Very important tool. A little bit more of the front Sallyport gate area. Quick trip back towards the front just for a look-see and then back out. I plan to make a sweep back around to where I started at the dorms and then get a look at the slab and drone docks from the other side. I also want to get a better close-up look at that antenna array. Hey, we all know what this pin went to. Skip ahead a little here in this incredibly long video back by the rec yard as we come up on the building with the antenna array. I just noticed that this other power or data cable coming off the roof and running towards the education buildings. No time to follow it now, it's getting late and I have to start prioritizing my time on target. But I'm assuming it goes towards that light to get power. As I approach the junction box here under the antenna array, I can hear major humming coming from this building. And I'm not sure how I missed this on my previous pass across here, but that right there is a StarLink setup with a secure transport case, which explains how whoever this is maintaining contact with the equipment and piloting the drones remotely. Throw another couple $1,000 on the fire. MatrixSpace. Go ahead and Google that company. Something I didn't know at the time, but they manufacture and sell specialized AI-controlled drone detection radar and sensing systems. meaning my earlier flyover was certainly detected and cataloged as I flew directly over this thing. That antenna array up on the roof is the MatrixSpace 360 radar system designed for airspace control, perimeter surveillance, and situational awareness of the area. Further research into the company and the other technology at work here leads me to believe that these drones may be controlled remotely, but they might also be entirely autonomous and controlled by AI systems with no human input at all. This is getting kind of spicy. Power and data lines running haphazardly all across this place in a jury rigged fashion, and yet connecting several hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Doesn't seem to be the way a legit government op would be run. See that power strip there? I'm no expert, but I don't think running extension cords through standing water to a power strip exposed to the rain is something that is in OSHA compliance exactly, and that tells me a thing or two about who may have set all this up. But, detected or not, I'm already here, and they're not, so what's in the box? Expensive stuff. That's what's in the box. This should be mining Bitcoin somewhere, not sitting in the desert. Note the date there of March 2025. Time to move. I'm going to head back around the long way to try to get a look at where those cables for the StarLink and the rest are going back by the dorms. Coming back through, I see something else I missed when I came in here, or at least I went the other way, and so I didn't see what they had put in place in this old watchtower. But I'm seeing it now. Yet another sensor array of some sort. For an abandoned location in the middle of nowhere, this place is absolutely crawling with high-tech, sophisticated, and expensive gear. This thing turned out to be an enterprise model of the Tempest WeatherFlow. It's an industrial-grade weather monitoring system. I mean, I guess if you're running remote flight operations with no hands on deck, it helps to have a picture of the local weather. And hey, money is obviously no object here, so why not? Add to cart. The boxy device attached below appears to be an infrared illuminator of some sort, something to light up this area on night vision, but not to the naked eye. I haven't identified the brand yet. We can see the cables coming down. I am assuming data and power cables, with that yellow cable probably being data. Back around the long way to look from other angles. Now I'm looking for sensors everywhere. A little farther down into the dorm area, see what things look like from down here, behind the StarLink setup now. Lots of old mattresses and stuff piled up in this old bathroom building. Gonna go through to continue around the perimeter area. Back along the main road between the inner and outer yard of the prison. There's our new sensor again. Let's see if we can trace those cables. And there's our StarLink. Another dorm. Take a quick peek to look out the window for the far side. And now I have spotted where our cables are leading to. Looks like everything is coming together in another dorm with the cables running through a broken window. Such professional-grade equipment, but such haphazard installation leads me to believe this is a shoestring operation, one that blew the majority of its load on gear. This definitely isn't government work. But that is our yellow data cable. The white cable heading up over the roof there is a new one. We'll have to see where that goes. Just checking the dates of expiration on these air cans just to see if they were part of the recent renovations. But no, they're old. All quiet on the drone front so far. Those things start launching and I'm going to have a big problem. More newly padlocked doors, and the remains of police crime scene tape. I'm assuming that this was the scene of one of the 2 murders here during the prison riot. Same locks and tape over here as well, and this one is the dorm with the cables running through the window. Those locks and hasps were not here 8 months ago. And we can see our white cable coming over that roof and running along the fence. And that goes to yet another antenna, which looks like the outdoor router and access point we found the box for back in the parole office trash pile. So, we got Wi-Fi. Later, back at home, checking my electronic snooper recorder from my phone, I show the only SSID out here was a 5G network named BS339 Sec Station. Again, that is Bravo Sierra 339er Sec Station. Nothing of much interest in this first locked dorm. Time is running too short to be worth climbing through the window. We can see our unidentified truck over outside the wire there. Let's go take a look through the window of the dorm with the cables. And now we can hear cooling fans humming again. Looks like the screen here fell off accidentally. I'm seeing a shopping bag from Best Buy down on the floor and an Amazon Prime box up on the bunk. That fan may be blowing on another computer setup over there. Looks like a power drill and some coils of Cat5 network cable as well. More packaging thrown around. Another good shot of our sensor tower, and we can see our cable mess coming out through a broken window there. This is as close as I'm comfortable getting to their stuff for the time being. At the time, in the field, I still didn't know what I was dealing with, and so I wasn't taking too many extra risks. Time to continue on my far trip around the rest of the side of the prison to get to the last few buildings. back through the inner fence out to the perimeter. Another bathroom building on this front side of the prison. And there is our weird truck outside. These two buildings out here were just outside the main fence line with their own gates and yards. I believe the front one was an area used for visiting as well as other meeting purposes, and the back one was a few different shops. This is as close to the truck as we can get while remaining on prison grounds. Outside, the buildings that you see are part of the huge, sprawling ghost town that was left behind when Kaiser Steel closed down the mining operation long before the prison was set up. That will be a Part 2 video exploration all of its own. Meanwhile, back to the exploration at hand. I want to note that while you've seen an hour and a half of video here, I've actually been on site for almost 6 hours at this point, and I haven't seen or heard a soul. Given that authorities are far away, but not that far away, this means that my presence has either not been detected, which I doubt, or it has been detected, but not by the types of people who tend to involve the authorities in their affairs. That is always a danger out here and in other desolate and isolated places in the U.S. Criminal types don't like the prying eyes or interference of law enforcement or even regular civilians in their activities, and so many of them choose to move their operations out here to the abandoned and forgotten parts of the country. Seeing this drone hardware, I'm wondering if I stumbled into something nefarious. The spent round here is actually something called simunition, this one in 223. Usually used by military and law enforcement for training, it allows you to use your regular firearms with some slight modifications, and instead of an actual jacketed round, it fires a hard paint pellet about as hard as a bar of soap. This doesn't kill you, of course, but it hurts like hell, and it definitely helps you learn how to not get shot anymore. I have found a few of them out here, and again, these were certainly not here when I was on location last time. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean much because even my own group makes extensive use of abandoned places like this to do our own tactical training. If you need to practice kicking doors and cutting pies, the best place to do it is in a real-world environment and using real equipment, but that is something that's frowned upon within city limits. That is what someone may have been doing out here, although I'm still making a note of it because any other group in the area that feels the need for tactical training is It's an important thing to know about. And they can afford simunition to burn, so well funded like our drone folks, perhaps. This is an old prison tool room. They would use these outlines to be able to quickly do tool counts and determine if something was missing. Usually inmate workers would check out tools to use for their tasks and then return them before finishing for the day. This here was an old count-keeping system with a drawer for each unit and then a sleeve for each bunk in that unit. An inmate would be assigned to a dorm and a bunk, and their card would be placed in the appropriate slot. That way, the guards always knew where everyone was supposed to be. Now, we'll walk back and take a look at this last building here. Mainly a print shop and some sort of meeting room. This would be the old print shop where inmate workers would actually print up all the forms and reports used by the staff at the prison. Inmate labor is always cheaper than outsourcing things, and so traditionally anything that could be done by inmates was done by inmates. It can be very economical for a privately owned prison with a captive slave labor force that can be paid actual pennies a day. The only labor cheaper than a sweatshop in Asia is found in American prisons. Here's the old printing press. A pretty interesting bit of history. No rat-away or stim packs in the first aid kit, which is very disappointing. Lots of footprints in the dust here. Boots. Time to make our way out of here and head around to take a look at that truck before venturing into the town. Spotted a pretty good buzzard here on the way out, keeping a close eye on me just in case I topple over and become a meal. This is the road along the outside of the prison leading back into the town that will be featured in a different video after this one. For now, we're just going to get a look at the truck outside. And there it is, along with an old workshop that was part of the town. Not a soul in sight. I hate crossing open space so much, especially here, because I always feel like I'm being watched. We can see the town back there, which is where I'll be headed after we conclude this last bit here. The truck and this cable trailer appear to have been sitting for quite some time, but not too long. Perhaps since the May 2025 dates that I found on the paperwork inside. And also inside the MatrixSpace radar box, if I remember correctly. I am certain this was used in the installation. Curious that it has no license plates or company designations. Time to go. So this Recon did bear some strange fruit, and now I have to try and figure out just what it is that I've uncovered there. Beyond the visuals and what has already been discussed in the video, I wanted to bring up a few key points about all this. The first is in regards to the location itself. All right, this place is extremely isolated, and there is very little of interest nearby. All right. Certainly, there's no operations that would legitimately need such a sophisticated drone monitoring network to be in place. All right, at least no overt operations. The only thing out there's the solar plant, and then, like I said, the mine may or may not be reopening. Who knows? But just the items that I've observed out there come to almost $250,000 of drone, radar, communications, and network hardware, all right, all strung together haphazardly across the remains of an old abandoned prison, and then just left here, with no human supervision at all. You don't find that suspicious? The second thing to think about is the nature of the property itself, all right? This is a long-abandoned town and prison with little legitimate use outside of being a Hollywood movie set every now and then. The mine is old, and it isn't like there was ever gold or uranium or anything good being mined there, all right? This was just Kaiser Steel mining iron. Now, just recently, the entire town was actually purchased from what is left of the original holding company, the town and the mine, for $22 million. And it was bought by some shadowy company with no other business dealings at all and with no stated purpose for the purchase. The name of the LLC in question is the Ecology Mountain Holdings LLC, and it's associated loosely, from what I can tell, with a company called Ecology Transportation, which operates a fleet of trucks for hazardous materials waste transport. Now, the company itself hasn't commented on the sale, and media requests have gone unanswered, which begs the question, what are they planning to do with Eagle Mountain? Everyone else just kind of stopped asking questions about it. That happened in 2023, and it hasn't been a story since. And even still, besides, just because they own the place, that doesn't mean that they know what's going on inside the prison there. It could be a third party. From what I could gather, their main idea seemed to be using the old mining pits as some sort of giant landfill, and that deal fell through. But now there's this crazy, sophisticated drone network up and running on the fly. You don't find that suspicious? Finally, another note is the installation of the equipment itself. All right, this is really expensive stuff. Okay, pricey and advanced, sensitive electronics, and really, it looks like Geek Squad from Best Buy would have done a better and more tidy job of the installation. You got cables, strung across fences and through broken windows and stretched across the ground, going every which way. Cheap fans jury-rigged around to help keep systems cool in the desert heat. If this was a legit project, why wasn't that thought of beforehand? Why wasn't there a better plan for cooling than some fans that were bought last minute at Walmart? I promise that isn't how a company like Nokia or MatrixSpace would have managed the installation of the components. So who did that installation? It has the look of a job that was done in a rush and by someone who probably didn't care about how it looked or about any long-term safety regarding the exposed cables and whatnot. Plus, no real on-site security at all. besides the security offered by the drones themselves, but that doesn't do any good if you don't actually put them up. Especially when I'm sure they detected my drone coming in. Now, yeah, this wasn't the government who put it there, okay? Uncle Sam would have spent much more money, and way more materials would have been used, and certainly Uncle Sam would have posted some personnel to keep an eye on things. So it wasn't the official government. It also wasn't some major corporation, okay? Just to protect the investment alone, more care would have been taken in the installation. And then you have to think about the safety concerns, all right? They are absolutely not going to think that it's a good idea to operate in a location, have their employees operating in a location riddled with old asbestos and rusty barbed wire and tons of rat and mouse droppings with rampant hantavirus and all that mess that is a normal part of abandoned buildings out in the desert, okay? Absolutely not. The lawsuits would have been seen coming a mile away, okay? And what about OSHA? You know, I can see the guys out there right now. Oh, sure, yeah. You know, we'll just run these extension cords from the power tap on that old light pole over there, and yeah, just run them right through this standing water on the ground, and then into that building over there. Yeah, that building. You know, the one with no working fire suppression system. Yeah, just run that cable, you know, right through the broken glass window. No need to remove the glass or anything. Yeah. No, absolutely not. No way any company executives or board of directors approve this. So not a legit corporation, not the government, then who? You know, that leaves private actors. You know, perhaps with a small privately held company to cover the needs of official stuff, right? I myself owned a part of an LLC that was formed specifically to use for access to the loopholes in tax law and mining claims so that we could set up our bug out location. So I am well aware of the ideas behind using corporations as legal entities to do things you might not otherwise be allowed to do. Okay, so there's that. And you know, something else, I can't help but think back a few months, well, a little more than a few months, but back to the news cycle at the time, you know, 6-7 months ago. Remember all the reports of drone swarms that were penetrating the airspace of U.S. military bases? Remember they flew over the base at Langley, of all places? They were flying all over New Jersey and all sorts of other bases and military installations and even Navy and Coast Guard ships, all right? Drones were all over the place. You know, people were spotting them, watching everything. We got this whole DJI thing about drones spying. And did we ever get a truly satisfying conclusion to those stories, or did the media just kind of mysteriously move on? You know, you don't find that suspicious? And now here we are, you know, not far from some pretty sensitive U.S. military bases, and I find a weird network of autonomous AI-powered drone systems sitting covertly set up in the secluded and somewhat secure grounds of an abandoned prison way out in the desert. I'm not sure exactly what I stumbled upon here, okay? But it's no small thing, whatever it is. And it doesn't make sense from any legitimate perspective that I can come up with. Something that always helps in any kind of investigation, whether that's a criminal investigation or an intelligence analysis, is trying to figure out the why behind it, okay? If you know why something happened, you have a much better chance of figuring out the other who, what, when, where, and how parts of the equation. So I do have several parts of this little mystery, but I just can't put my finger on a why that makes sense to me. You know, why is this out here? Why are they doing this? You know, what are they looking at? I don't get it. Throw in the curveballs of things like the little handwritten Arabic notebook that I found and that strange bolo sheet, okay? Or even this, you know, the unmarked utility truck that they just kind of left to rot out there, all right? There's a lot of weird aspects here that they just don't make sense. Now, many of you out there are no doubt wondering, you know, why I would dare to post this video, okay? With what I found out there and not knowing who's involved. Yeah, I guess, you know, normally it seems like it'd be a very silly thing to do, right? Maybe I should have just posted a cool tour of the abandoned prison and kept the rest of this under my hat. And hey, you know what? Maybe a smarter fellow would have done just that. All right. But however, I do have a reason. All right. The main reason is that without involving certain special sources of my own, I've kind of run into a bit of a wall figuring out what's going on out there. All right. And more importantly, who's doing it and why. So let me familiarize you with yet another of those military concepts that I'm so fond of. All right. And the one I'm talking about is called Recon by Fire. And in its most simple terms, this is something that comes into play when, you're unaware if there might be enemies over in that tree line over in there or in that building or something like that, whatever. Lacking any better options for finding out at a tactical level what's going on, sometimes you just start putting rounds downrange and see who, if anyone, returns fire. So in effect, that's part of what this video is, okay? This is one of my blind shots downrange. Now we'll see, who fires back and with what. And, maybe it'll cause a little bit of a stir. Maybe I can get this out there and someone else will be interested in looking into it. Maybe the media, who knows? Whatever it is, it's an interesting story. In the meantime, I do like to keep my promises to my viewers, and I promised something that no one has seen posted before on YouTube. And so I delivered the interior of the not-so-abandoned prison complex at Eagle Mountain. Are you not entertained? Now, beyond the normal Wasteland Spotlight stuff, I would also ask any of you out there watching, if you have any ideas as to, what the hell might be going on out here, please drop them in the comments down there. I'm definitely gonna be going over all of them, and I could definitely use your help figuring this out. All right, with my initial physical recon complete, I now know that this is out there. And so my next step is to determine what it is, and only after that can I decide if it represents some sort of a threat. So I could definitely use your help. Share it on Facebook, on Reddit, share it to other people through text messages, whatever. Just, try to get it out there a little bit if you have any capability to do so. I would greatly appreciate that. At any rate, I hope you've enjoyed the look inside the infamous Eagle Mountain Prison. I will be continuing later with a part 2 of this in the form of a follow-up Wasteland Spotlight video. And that'll be coming out after a while. That'll be my exploration of the actual massive ghost town that surrounds the outskirts of the prison. So be on the lookout for that one. Until then, stay safe and stay ready, my friends. It's a wasteland out there.